You're listening to the League Bound Podcast.
He could be a crazy prospect.
Is arguably one of the best players in all of basketball.
Whatever happens, please, for the love of God, do not take another big man.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the League Bound Podcast, where we break down the best draft prospects and some of the rising stars of the NBA. It is the beginning of a new draft cycle and a new year, and I know I'm super excited to be here. I'm Brandon, and I'm here with Jake, Cameron, and our producer, Brody. How are you guys feeling today and about the new season?
Yeah, I feel like season 4 for us, season 2 with Cam, it's going to be great. Excited about this insanely talented draft class.
Nah, I'm definitely excited. This year's class projects to be a lot better than last year's. Top to bottom, I think there's some really, really good talent, so can't wait to get started.
Yeah, so with that being said, obviously the NBA preseason has started, and we just finished up with the 2024 draft cycle. Not all the rookies have played, but of the guys who have, how have you guys felt about them? I know Rob Dillingham, Ron Holland both played this weekend, and there were some other guys too. And there's more tonight who I'm also excited to see. I think Rob Dillingham had like 20 his first game. Which
21 on 20 shots, which that's a lot. I mean, it's preseason, so you like that a young guy's getting up shots like that. But if he can become that volume scorer like we saw at times at Kentucky alongside Anthony Edwards in the backcourt, I mean, that looks like major damage coming in the Western Conference.
Yeah, from the first game, watching Rob, one thing stood out to me, he's going to be him. No matter what, he's going to be him. Like, they talked about a lot during Summer League how the coaches kind of wanted him to pass first more. Like, they wanted him to get his teammates involved and find his within the flow of the offense. You could tell he, like, tried it at the beginning of the game, but, like, as it went on and he kind of seen, like, the rest of the bench players weren't really that into it, he was like, all right, time for me to put the ball in the basket. So, 20 shots, it was like, all right, 20 shots to get 20 isn't that great, but overall, I like the aggressiveness. Just out of someone who, like, that's what you draft him for at the end of the day. Like,
yeah,
you want him to be himself. So I think what he did in that first game, while he definitely got a shot block a couple times, one by Bronny on the baseline. I think he missed a point blank layup trying to go right hand on left side.
There was one I thought he was about to yam it, and then he tried to switch too late. But
like, it's definitely like some wildness to his game that the coaches probably still want to like rein in a little bit. But I was impressed for, like, normally rookie guards look terrible, so I was kind of impressed.
That's funny you bring that up, though, because I was actually watching, I saw like a small interview from Ant, and he was talking about the connection he's already built with Rob, and he said basically, Rob's not going to pass the ball, but you can't tell him anything because he's efficient with it, which I thought was kind of funny. But, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what they brought him there to do. That's why they traded up for him, and they're seriously expecting him to have a big role. Like, they're not drafting him just to sit on the bench. Like, they want him to come and contribute right away. And obviously it's preseason, but that first game, it looks like he can do it. I mean, obviously he's a skinnier guy, so it's natural to think, oh my gosh, like, he's smaller, he might struggle, but I don't think it was that much of an issue. So he's ready to go.
He looked tiny out there, though. I will say that. He looked so small. But just like the craftiness and the speed is the one big thing. I was looking to see if it transferred, and it definitely looked like it did. He was kind of just running everywhere, 90 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the two biggest additions in terms of the draft this year for Minnesota looked really good. I mean, Rob with 20 points on 20 shots in 20 minutes is like, that's insane. But even like Terrence Shannon, 14 points in 27 minutes, that's another guy that obviously with more experience coming out of the draft, but definitely had a high ceiling as well. So if they hit on both those picks, and Minnesota already being one of the better teams in the Western Conference, that might raise their ceiling a lot quicker than I think people are expecting.
Mm-hmm. And Terrence Shannon is a guy who, obviously he had that off-the-court stuff last year, but he was a guy who I genuinely thought could go in the first round. Wait, when did he go?
He went in the first round.
At
the very end.
27, so like barely.
But I'm just worried because I feel like they already have so many other wings, and they've drafted a lot of other younger guys. And Terrence Shannon is a guy who, especially just watching it, I think even Dillingham had an assist to Terrence Shannon. He just
that dunk.
punched it. I was like, ooh. But he's a guy who I really want to see find his way in the league, just because, one, I think he's a fun player to watch, and obviously he's a little bit older, but I still think he has the tools to do damage.
Yeah. Last note on that, 20 shots in 20 minutes is elite shot jacking. Like, that is really getting them up.
You know what I love too? I feel like we saw Rob kind of go back to his high school ways where, you know how when he shoots and he doesn't always have his feet set? I feel like you kind of saw that at Kentucky, but it wasn't as extreme. I feel like there were more plays where he was like twisting his body and, that's the kind of stuff I love, because it's like, obviously they talk about all the fundamentals and then these pros come and they can just do whatever they want.
I think especially at his size, like, at Kentucky is different because when you're in college, like, you're playing on another team, there might be a couple pros. Like, there's a few guys that are going to the league, but like in the NBA, all these guys are pros. All these guys are most likely pretty solid in college. They're all really big, and he's just not that size. Like, he's very small. So I think you'll see a lot more of that high school, like, game that you talk about where he's like landing off balance, having to do different weird things to contort himself around defenders, because
definitely he's gonna have to
so
work a little more to create. Not saying that it's gonna be hard for him, but it's the NBA. There's bigger defenders. So
yeah, something else like that I'm excited to see about specifically the Minnesota rookies is this team is so deep, because after that trade for giving up Karl Anthony Towns, you bring in DiVincenzo, you bring in Julius Randle. So obviously, Minnesota's going to be in the postseason. So a guy like Rob Dillingham, a guy like Terrence Shannon, they're going to see early, pressure-filled minutes in the postseason where Rob might have to go out there and, who knows, by that point in the season, he might be the starting point guard going up against a Luka Doncic when it all matters. So I feel like that early postseason experience is going to just do numbers for their development early in their career. So should be fun to see him the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see Alex Sarr at all this weekend?
I saw the box score, but
he looked good. He had 15 points. He knocked down a couple open catch and shoot threes. He had a couple really nice dunks. He had some really good passes to Jordan Poole. Them two seem like they have an early chemistry together. He seems like someone who might be kind of vaulting to the front of like who I think could possibly win Rookie of the Year, because if they're going to give him minutes and he's going to play like that where it's super efficient, I think he made like his first 5 or 6 shots. Like he was really effective. He blocked shots. Like that looks more like the Alex Sarr I was expecting to see in Summer League, as opposed to the one who was out there scoring 0 points as the number 2 pick. But
yeah,
he was 3 of 4 from 3 in only 8 shots. I mean, it was almost a complete opposite from what we saw from Rob Dillingham. 6 of 8 from the field in 22 minutes. He hit 3 of 4 threes. Like that, if he could just do that consistently, I think you're right. I think he's going to run away with that Rookie of the Year if he's playing defense too.
Speaking of it, though, how do we feel about this year's Rookie of the Year race? Because I know me and Cameron were talking about it a little bit before the pod, but it feels like this year, and obviously with last year, the dialogue around that class, it feels like this year is so wide open. And obviously, I think a guy like Alex Sarr could be up there because obviously he was a number 2 pick, and there was talk of him going number 1. But I feel like as far as who fills in after that is interesting, because obviously I think it's going to come down to opportunity and like what people's minutes are looking like. But it feels like there's not a lot of rookies in this class who are going to be starting right off the bat, and they could be kind of buried in the rotation. So I think that makes this race a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely like there's not a lot of guys who have obvious opportunity coming in. Like I really don't know, besides of Zach Edey, which is like, it's pretty penciled in that he's going to start. I don't know how many guys are actually going to start in their first year, at least to start the year. Like it just doesn't seem like many guys are penciled in as the starters. So it'll be interesting coming out of training camp, seeing who earns that spot, like who is able to take minutes away from the veterans in front of them. But I personally think that as it currently stands, I would place my money on somebody like Alex Sarr or one of Dillingham and Shepard, just because like Dillingham kind of has a clear-cut opportunity like we just talked about. He has a role that's already established. He's going to get minutes, and it looks like from the fresh preseason game, they're not going to make him be gun-shy. So
yeah,
he's going to have an opportunity to put up numbers. And Shepard, I just think that as the year goes on, his shooting is going to make it hard for the Rockets to keep him off the court. So if he can get on the court and stay on the court consistently, I just think his production will be enough to at least be in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so interesting too, though, because Dillingham, obviously, he has guys in front of him who I think it's going to be hard for him to pass. But obviously, he doesn't need to do that to win Rookie of the Year. But even Shepard, too, like, I think compared to a lot of the other rookies, it would be easier for him to rise up just because that team is so young. But at the same time, it also makes you realize, like, this, obviously, with the class being considered weaker, it's going to look so much different. But I think it's going to be super, super tight because I think it's going to be like late in the season where we really see a guy run away with it.
Yeah, just looking back at the past 5 or 6 years of Rookie of the Year winners, only 2 of the last 6 were number 1 picks, but it's been back-to-back years where the number 1 pick in the draft took home Rookie of the Year. We're talking about Victor, and we're talking about Paulo Banchero, but before that, it was guys like Scotty Barnes who were in the top 5 still, LaMelo Ball, John Morant. So in a year like this where it's so up in the air and there's not really off the bat a clear runaway victory for Rookie of the Year like we saw with Wemby last year, I'm surprised we're not talking about Zach Risache because I feel like with Atlanta no longer having DeJounte Murray, they may need him to take on a little bit of the role early on in the season, and maybe his numbers will go up there pretty high.
I just think he's very skinny. Like, I think he's really skinny, and that's going to make it hard for someone who already really doesn't have a really effective handle. Like, he's not necessarily a liability in that area, but he's not necessarily what I would call a creator on offense. Mm-hmm. So I kind of see the path towards Rookie of the Year being hard for someone whose main job is going to be catch and shoot in defense.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like he's just kind of a complimentary guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like looking at Alex Sarr, who's supposed to go number 1, even though he's not necessarily a guy who's going to be your number 1 option per se, he does so much defensively, and I don't think Risache, I don't think he brings that value to both sides of the ball like Sarr does. So it's like, I think it would be hard for a guy like him just because he's kind of I don't want to say more quiet player, but
his game is just kind of quiet. Like, even when he puts up solid numbers, like, he can have a really good shooting game, play good on defense. It doesn't really stand out because it's almost like Kawhi Leonard in a sense. If you watch Kawhi Leonard play, it's very kind of stiff and robotic, and it's not like, I just don't think his game is necessarily complementary to winning an award like Rookie of the Year. Like, he might have one of the biggest impacts, but I just can't remember the last time a defensive player won Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm. So you guys think the streak of 2 years in a row, number 1 pick, taking it home, that's over?
It's obviously still too early, but as of now, I'd say so. I think another guy who I'm kind of forgetting is Stephon Castle. I'm interested to see how he looks, and I don't know what it's going to look like because I've only seen a little bit of the Spurs and like what they've kind of talked about in training camp. But Chris Paul had a lot of high praise for him, and obviously Chris Paul he's a guy with a lot of ball knowledge, and his thing, obviously he hasn't won a lot of championships, and he's not the greatest playoff performer. But actually, let me take that back because outside of the finals, he's been an amazing player. But what I'm trying to say is that Chris Paul is a guy who develops a lot of young guys. Like, he played a part in Shea's development, and obviously Stephon and Shea have drawn a lot of comparisons with, the way that they run the point.
Yep.
And Summer League looked really good for Stephon Castle, and he's a player who I'm more interested to see. So I think he's kind of my sleeper for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because going back to the opportunity thing we were talking about, Devin Vassell is kind of going to be hurt for the beginning of the season for the Spurs. And while they might pick like a veteran like Julian Champagne or somebody like that to start at first, I think if Stephon Castle is showing enough in practice, he has the opportunity to take that starting job, at least while Vassell is out. And if he can start, I think we've, like you said, with Chris Paul, we've seen guys, like especially younger guys, really thrive next to him.
Yeah, talking about sleepers for Rookie of the Year, it's so weird to talk about too because we already just said that it's up in the air, so there's really no favorite. So how could there be a sleeper? But I guess just in terms of where they were drafted, I'd be looking at someone like a Cody Williams or maybe a Modest Buzelis because, one, I think Chicago is going to be one of the weaker teams in the NBA this year. So by December, if they're already, almost 10 games under 500, they might just hand the reins to Modest Buzelis and just say, go develop, get thrown into the deep end. And if he can put together a stretch where he's averaging, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, like that's going to be pretty impressive, even if the team is not doing well as a whole. So do you think anyone in that kind of 10 to somewhere down the line, even further than that, could get their name up there in Rookie of the Year voting?
I really like Bub Carrington's game. I think that he's somebody that if they give him the ball enough, that he could possibly make a run for it. The problem is he has guys like Jordan Poole in that backcourt. It's not going to be very much opportunity, even if he does get on the court. Like, Poole is going to take up a lot of that space. So I think he's somebody that if they possibly move Poole, or if like he goes more to like a point guard role, that he might have a chance to make a run for it.
Yeah, I just feel like it's going to be tough for someone who's not a consistent starter every single night to pull that Rookie of the Year, because like I'm even looking at someone like Khalil Ware, who had a really strong summer league, but you're on the same team as Bam Adebayo, so like what's his production going to look like numbers wise compared to someone who's going to be that starting center every single night for their team? So like I don't know if he's going to be having the same numbers as a Donovan Clingan, because they're both kind of up in the air in terms of who's going to be the starting center. Well, I guess more Bam Adebayo's for sure, but I could see Portland kind of having a discussion maybe at the trade deadline about DeAndre Ayton, but someone like Donovan Clingan as well, even though he's in the top 10, what's his production going to look like rookie year?
That's another thing I'm trying to think about too, because I feel like with a class like this, it could be somebody who's very defensive minded that ends up winning it. And obviously with it being a new draft cycle, we have a new group of prospects to talk about. And this year I think is a very exciting group, especially compared to last year, because it feels like now we have a lot of guys who could go number one, but for the right reason. So obviously there's a guy like Cooper Flagg who's, I'd say, earned a lot of the hype. But me personally, I still feel like there's a lot of other guys who are worthy of that hype as well. So what do you guys think about Cooper Flagg being, I guess, the lock for number one for a lot of people?
Yeah, I don't really think that he's a lock for me personally. Like, I think he may be a lock just because the amount of hype he's gotten has kind of reached like that critical point to where now, if like, unless the season goes like really bad for him or something, like if he just kind of just hold serve during the season, it'll be hard for a GM to like look at somebody who's seen as a generational prospect and be like, nah, I kind of like this other player better. Mm-hmm. So I think in that way he's probably a lock, but as far as who I think should go number one, I think it's really close. I actually don't have him as my number one player in this class. So I think that guys like Dylan Harper, guys like Ace Bailey, guys like Trey Johnson, like there's a lot of other guys who are kind of knocking on that door. And I think personally as an evaluator, I want to see a little bit more from Cooper Flagg before I just give him the lock number one title.
Yeah, I think a lot of the hype came from his footage with the USA team this past summer. And obviously he didn't, cook Kevin Durant or anything. He's only was like, 17 years old, 18 years old. But he held his own at times, and he had a couple dunks, a couple jump shots as well. So that's obviously going to be impressive that he can do that at such a young age against the best the U.S. had to offer. But I think it is fair to bring up some of these other names like the Rutgers kids with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. Also some of the other guards in this class like Nolan Traore, VJ Edcombe. Both of those guys I think are going to have big years. And if a team, it could also come down to, if it does become neck and neck, it could come down to a lottery where a team at the top needs a guard no matter what versus they need like a wing. That's obviously not super common. Most teams are not going to pass up on, a 6'9" small forward, power forward hybrid that can handle, shoot, pass, defend. I don't think there's a single team in the NBA outside of maybe Boston that's like, we're good on that position. But if a team wants a guard, there is plenty of them to pick from in the top 5 in this class, which is going to be crazy.
Yeah. Now, I did start this segment a little negative, but I'll give Cooper Flagg his flowers still, because right now I do still have him as the number one player. But I think where a lot of at least to me, it seems like a lot of the hype for him, people don't really know what they're hyping up yet. And I think for Cooper Flagg, he's a player who's amazing defensively and does just about everything. But I think where I could see somebody else surpassing him comes on the offensive side. I think Cooper benefited in his AAU days from playing, obviously, for a team that was catered to him. Now, that's not a bad thing, but I think it made him more comfortable doing a lot of different things. But from what I've seen in this game, I wouldn't say there's anything that he excels at or that I would say makes him a number one option in the NBA right now. But I think guys like Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, they're on the same team. And even Trey Johnson, like Cameron said, I think they have more of the skill set that would be the number one option type of player, make them a number one pick. But for now, I'll keep Flagg at the top just because of what we've seen so far.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about Cooper Flagg, and we've done in the past little various bits and pieces about some of the top guys in this class, but who do you guys have as your sleepers in this class?
I think for me, it's between Trey Johnson and Jalil Bethea from Miami. I think Bethea is a guy who I feel like is one of the better shooters in this class. I'm going to hold off from saying he's the best shooter because obviously there's guys like Liam McNeely in here. But I think Bethea, he has the mix of shot creation. He's also surprisingly very explosive too, which is something. He's not the biggest guard, but he's about 6'5". I think there's just a lot to like about his game, and I think he's in a situation at Miami where he's not going to have to take a back seat to anybody, so I could easily see his stock rising.
Yeah, I don't know if I would count him as a sleeper at this point to be listed around that top 5, but you don't really see a lot of people saying VJ Edgecombe is going to be the number one pick over some of these other guards or obviously Cooper Flagg, but playing alongside Jeremy Roach, I think is going to be huge for his development as a freshman to have that veteran guard to lean on and learn from in his freshman year. And obviously Baylor is known for having elite guards that go to the NBA over the last few years. So if VJ just comes out and that duo of him and Jeremy Roach is just dominant in the Big 12, I wouldn't be surprised to see him rise to the top guard in this class, which very well could result as the top pick in this class as well.
The one thing I like about Edgecombe is he played for the Bahamas during the Olympic qualifiers. So he was going with like real NBA players. And obviously he's just otherworldly athletic. Like
He looked like the best player on that team at times.
Yeah.
And that team had like Buddy Hield. Like it had real NBA guys on that team too.
Plus, if you remember, I don't know if you guys watched the McDonald's game, but he had some crazy blocks in that game. I think the biggest question mark about him is more the offensive game, but I think I just really like Edgecombe because the way he plays is just so fun.
Yeah, for me, guys that I think are a little bit underrated at this point are guys like Will Riley. I think he has that's somebody who, if everything goes right, I think he could possibly challenge for the number one spot as well. Like he's a 6'8" guard that can shoot, dribble, pass a little bit. Like he's on the older side for a freshman. He reclassed, thankfully, to this year, so he's not super old, but I think he's someone that is worth a watch. I think Asa Newell is someone like we've kind of seen the archetype of 5 men who can shoot, step out, and guard on the perimeter. Like that's really something that teams are looking for. So I think he has someone who has the potential to rise. And then other guys like Carter Bryant, Kane Catchings are 2 guys that I'm also really looking forward to watching.
You mentioned age as like a factor. Do you guys have any returning college players, sophomore, junior, senior, that you could see really raising their stock and going pretty high in this year's draft?
I know Hunter Salas was a talk to go in the first round last year, but this year it's a little bit deeper, so we'll see if that holds true. But if he has a productive year, I could see him, sliding into the lottery. But another guy who we saw this guy in person, Jackson Robinson. I feel like he's 6'6". He's obviously a little bit older, but I think he has good size. He's a good scorer. I think that's the type of player you would want in the NBA. And obviously, he was at BYU last year and he played in the Big 12, but I think he'll have a slight upgrade in terms of eyes now because he's at Kentucky. And obviously they're one of the blue bloods of college basketball, even though they have a new coach now. So I would expect him to get a lot of buzz.
Yeah, I like guys like I think that where's the kid go? Oh my God. All right. Jelon Lowe. I think somebody from Pittsburgh. He was Bub Carrington's running mate last year. I think he's someone that looking forward to watching this year. Someone like Xavier Booker. I think that he was like really underused at Michigan State last year. I don't really understand, especially because they did not have a very deep front court. I don't understand really what happened to him last year. So he's a kid that I think is like really, really talented. And in the moments he did get in, he kind of showed some of that talent. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he looks like in his second year. I think Izzo has a really good track record with guys with his build, with guys like Jaren Jackson from Memphis. I think he can kind of develop into something like that. I think that would be really interesting. And the last guy I'm really keeping my eye on would be Aaron Bradshaw. I think he had a rough go with it with injury and just not really being able to crack the Kentucky rotation last year. I think at Ohio State, he'll probably get a big opportunity. I'm looking forward to what that looks like for him.
Yeah, you talk about Michigan State. Did you guys see that video of Cohen Carr doing between the legs from the free throw
His
line?
bounce is insane.
That is ridiculous. So if he puts together a little bit more of a complete offensive game, I could see him getting definitely a nod near either the back half of the first round or even higher if he really pops off. But I would say my guy that's returning that I think could do pretty well and get his name up higher in the class is Milan Momcilovic, I think is how you say his name, from Iowa State. Great post game. Jumper looks clean. He's a good passer. Just kind of like that late 20s pick that some playoff team is going to pick up and add a solid big that can provide some skill, not just size, in the team that's going to be in the postseason late in the draft. So definitely keep an eye out for him.
Yeah, this class is like really, really deep. Like there's guys that were like fringe first rounders last year, guys like Hunter Silas, Tyson, Grant Foster, like DJ Wagner. Like there's a lot of guys that are coming back.
Bring DJ up at Arkansas.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are like coming back that are like, it's going to be tough because there's so many really good young talent this year and overseas talent that's like, yeah, I'm interested to see who will be able to come out this year and then who kind of just like runs out of eligibility and be forced out.
All right, well, that's going to do it. I know it's a kind of a short one this week as we return to action here on League Bound, but we've got plenty more coming up this season. We're going to be looking at some potential like best freshmen, best players in college every week. We'll be breaking down different guys as we continue to see them throughout the regular season. But as college and the NBA season is getting set to begin, that's what we have for you here this week. But super excited to be back. Thanks for joining us.